Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Anoki Uncensored, airing for free, you guys know, on the world's #1 South Asian radio station, Ruckus Avenue Radio, on the iHeartRadio app. Just download the app and search Ruckus Avenue Radio. Our episodes for Anoki Uncensored air every Tuesday at 7 p.m. PST and 10 p.m. EST. You can also watch the episodes. I know that you guys know this, but I always love to remind you on the Girn YouTube channel and the Anoki Media Facebook page. So if you haven't joined either, I encourage you to join both shortly. I say shortly because I don't want you to leave here right now. I'm your host, Girn, and I'm coming to you today with a story about resilience, challenge, belonging, and success. My guest today is Tanpreet Parmar, who has journeyed through all of these facets to finally be crowned Miss Canada 2024, no less. She's here to talk to us today, and I am thrilled to welcome her on the show. Sweetheart, we've been dying to do this with you. We've been trying to do this with you, and I'm so happy that we get to chat finally face to face. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, Raj. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here today and talk to you.
Absolutely, my love. So I'm thrilled that you agreed to talk about your experiences in detail, Tanpreet. And I cannot wait for everyone watching, listening, and reading this to learn how you have funneled your experiences into championing mental health. But before we get there, I want people to go on a bit of a journey with us today. Let's set the stage for everyone. I want them to know who you were before you forayed on this journey into beauty pageantry. Who was Tanpreet Parmar before all that transpired?
So, growing up, I moved from Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong. My parents immigrated to Canada with my sisters, myself, and my little brother. So, there's four of us. And growing up, I was just an ordinary girl with dreams. And I think that's fair to say. And the most honest answer I can give you, I grew up not really necessarily knowing what I wanted to do in my life, and I was very lost. I didn't know what career path I wanted to go to or what I was truly passionate about. And I really had to navigate through, I think, the experiences in my life to just understand while growing up, whether it be through my journey with school, education, and finding those passions. And that's how I kind of developed that understanding of, okay, I think this is my calling. And that led me to where I am today. But I would just say a regular girl growing up and going through life.
Oh my gosh. Who had, you know, massive goals in life, because we're going to kind of, journey through that a little bit. And let's start that by just asking you just the fundamental question, Tanpreet. When and why did you set your sights on entering the beauty pageant space? What
Great
was it?
question.
Yeah.
So, fun fact, I never actually personally ever thought that I would ever do a pageant in my life. I never truly wanted to. And the reason why I never wanted to begin with was because I had maybe a false perception of what pageants truly were. And it really impacted the way I felt about pageants. And I was, to be honest, very discouraged. I felt that I needed to look a certain way and be a certain way in order to even participate. And I eventually came across pageants that had a focus on personality, which is not something we often see. And, while there's so many pageants doing great things in the community, I still felt that there is a lot of emphasis on appearance and how we look. So being able to come across a pageant, my first pageant was in BC. And I moved on to doing some other pageants before I went to Miss Canada. And they were very focused on personality. And I felt so empowered that I was able to participate just being my true self and going in for the right reasons.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to really kind of dive a little deeper into that. But before we do, I want to ask you this question. What were you hoping this opportunity was actually going to bring to you? Like, what did you want to accomplish from it?
I wanted to accomplish the feeling of understanding that I was able to achieve this goal of, representing Canada, but also being Miss Canada, being a role model, but being myself and being accepted for who I am. for my background, for what I believe in, what my values are. That was something that I really wanted to accomplish for myself. Throughout my life, I've, been discouraged, as many people might have in their journeys, and we go through our setbacks and failures. And for me, it was really, truly something that I had set for myself, and to be able to achieve that goal and, be accepted for my values, what I believe in, who I am as an individual, not having to change the way I am, and to be able to hold an incredible title like Miss Canada. That was something that I was really going for. And of course, at the end of the day, not only empowering myself, but empowering other women around me who are probably going through their own journeys themselves and feeling the same way.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the journey, Tanpreet. Can you share how you got from the idea of competing to bagging the coveted Miss Canada 2024 title? Because you went through several failed attempts. That's what I read before you finally won the crown. Can you take us on that journey? I'm so intrigued.
Absolutely. So I competed for Miss Canada 4 times until I won the title of Miss Canada in a span of 6 years. And
Wow.
I know. And you know what? When I think about it, I get the chills because it's a lot. And I don't know if people necessarily all get the chance to watch or participate or actually be in a pageant to even see it on the other side or participate in it. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time for yourself and development and reflection. And, the first time I went in was really just to get that experience of what this pageant was about. I really appreciated the values of the pageant. Miss Canada is truly a personality pageant, and that's what really drew me towards that specific pageant. So the first year around when I had competed, of course, the goal was to come back with the title, but I had told myself, don't go in with that expectation. Just go in with the expectation of getting that experience and learning and growing from it and creating so many memories for yourself. So going in the first time around, of course, I didn't place, but I had realized how much I gained from it. And that was that piece of self-reflecting on who I am as an individual, what my
Mm.
goals were, what my platform was, being able to be around so many different kind of inspiring women around me. Like the journey itself was just so empowering. And even going into the pageant, preparing for the pageant, and then coming out of it, I personally felt like a new person. When I didn't necessarily win the title, of course, we naturally as humans feel a little bit discouraged. Okay, I didn't win, but I tried to focus on what I gained from it. And I've been a person in my life that I feel that I've been set back and put down so much that I turned that into a motivation to keep going and persevering. And I think that's very important in our lives, which led me to going back a second time. And I was fortunate enough to have placed second runner up. And I was extremely grateful for that opportunity. And then the third time came around and I said, all right, I'm going back. I'm one step closer to my goal. It's about progress. So, when you're going the first and the second and the third time, I'm just thinking, wow, okay, I've made so much progress. And that's so important to really take in your journeys, is the progress, even if you don't necessarily get there. Third time I
Mhm.
went back and I actually didn't even place top like 6 or whatever it was at that time, maybe top 10. And at that point, I even had people come up to me and say, oh, isn't that very discouraging because you didn't place in the year before you were second runner up? And I told myself that there was a part of me that felt a little bit, disappointed, but I didn't let it define me. It didn't define me
Mhm.
at all. I knew there was so many incredible people around me, and at the end of the day, only one person can take home the title, but that doesn't define who we are and what our capabilities are. And I hit a bit of a break in the road between the third and the fourth time. And that was, to be honest and fair with you, I was really challenged with my mental health struggles at that time. I think I did let the discouragement get to me. And I also was dealing with my personal battles that I was going through at that time. And I took about 2 years just to myself to really reflect on what I wanted to do. And the fourth time came around, which was this year. And I told myself 2 months before the pageant was about to happen that I was going back. And I gave myself 2 months to prepare for Miss Canada. And I had a feeling inside of me. I'm a big believer, just go with your gut. If your heart is telling you to do something, go with it. So I decided to tell myself, what do I want to do for myself this year in order to have a positive year ahead? And it was quite early in the year when I decided to do the pageant. And that's when I said, okay, let's do it. went in this year with a really different mindset. I really took the time to reflect on what I've done the last few years and how I could continue to grow for myself. And I think going in with a better positive mindset this year for Miss Canada really changed a lot for me. And then that's how I ended up here today, all summed
Oh my
up.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Like so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
I wanna start by asking you a question that I would ask myself. And that is, what kept making you go back? Like, what was it? Because those people who aren't familiar with these types of pageants, there is so much that goes into the preparation, mind, body, heart, soul, spirit. There's so much that goes into it, finances, right? What was it? What was that pot of gold at the end of the journey, other than the title? That
Absolutely.
just said, yeah, that you just like, 4 times girlfriend. I mean, I got to give it to you. You are resilient.
Thank you. And you know what? It was definitely a tough journey, but I think the biggest thing for me was one thing that I've genuinely struggled with throughout my life, and being very honest, we tend to judge a person by the cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. That's what we always say. And I think one of the struggles I've had throughout my life is, of course, besides from pageants, being in the world of acting, modeling, I was doing it very freelance, but having a social media presence. A lot of people seem to perceive me, or maybe somebody who might be in the same field as me, as a confident person or a person that might be a certain type of way. And to be able to go back, I just really wanted to not only be vulnerable for myself, just to show others around me that I'm human and I go through my fair share of hardships myself. And I persevere through my life. I've not necessarily been that perfect individual that's achieved their goals the first, second, or third time, even though it might seem like that. And I just wanted to show the real side of me and what many other people in life go through. And, it's really important to understand that we all go through our journeys. So going back, there was that aspect to it. And of course, there was that aspect to it where I really wanted to achieve a goal for myself. Right.
Mhm.
And for me, I've always been a big believer in persevering through life and not letting things bring you down the way, because I have let things bring me down in the past, whether it be discouragement, rejection, bullying, whether it be any of those things. And a lot of those things really affected my mental health, my anxiety, the way I felt about myself. And it was really coming down to the point that, was I going to let these factors, these internal and external factors, define me and determine how I want to live my life and what I want to accomplish and stop me from doing it? Or am I going to choose to believe in myself? Am I going to really keep going and persevering through this and working on myself as an individual and getting through this journey and accomplishing that goal? And I'm a big believer that if you keep working hard, if you really focus on, your end goal and just persevere through those bumps in the road, you're going to get there. There's nothing
Mhm.
stopping any of us from that. And there was a lot of things that really motivated me in my life. And those were some of the most important things. And of course, just being able to be that inspiration to anybody else that might be going through the same thing that I'm going through.
You're such a testament to, strong belief in self, even when you're facing so many things that perhaps tell you that maybe you shouldn't be going in these directions. We question ourselves. I know that you mentioned, between the third and the fourth time that, you kind of had to really work on yourself in that area. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that because, you've clearly said that you face challenges with body image, anxiety, and these are the types of things that many people face, even more so today because of social media and the world that we live in. And the expectations are just so much more amplified than they ever were when I was growing up pre-social media. And of course, these things eventually can lead into many different phases of depression. You have gone through that. This couldn't be a more important topic for us to talk about, not just in the industry you're in, but any industry or any place where, we are put into kind of this fishbowl kind of environment. I want to ask you, especially for the younger generations, for people that are aspiring for something where there is a lot of potential backlash with what you've gone through. What would you say to them?
One thing that I would just say is really truly learn to love yourselves and accept yourself for who you are. I think that was something I struggled with. Society is evolving, beauty standards constantly growing and changing and becoming more unrealistic day by day. Something that I've also struggled with. I'm sure many people battle with that, regardless of what journey or path you're in. But I think the biggest thing, the hardest thing for me was to truly learn to have that self acceptance of myself, to develop that self esteem and confidence, which I had it in waves, and that's fair. That's normal. It's going to happen. But, we are all so unique in our own ways. We all bring something so important to the table. We should really really embrace our uniqueness and where we come from and embrace that. I think it's so important. We just really need to learn to love ourselves. And sometimes it's such a simple thing to say, but a very hard thing to do. But that's when you need to understand what are the things in my life that I need to eliminate in order to do that. So that's my advice, because that's what I had to do. I had to really take a step back. Self-reflection is so important, and learning to eliminate anything that's stopping you from feeling that way.
Absolutely. I want to ask you this because I feel that this is an important thing for people who have not gone through these types of challenges that are mental health related, which, by the way, I don't know who that could potentially be on this earth with what we have to face, coming at us in every single direction. But for anyone out there that doesn't quite understand it, or maybe are in denial that they could be going through some mental health challenges, I want to ask you, how did the depression show up for you? And when did you recognize that you were going through it? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of it is, how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, so great question. So we all have mental health. That's one thing. As human, we all have mental health and we all need to take care of our mental health. That doesn't necessarily mean you have a mental illness. There's a huge difference between the two, and it's very important to understand that. I personally did not even know much about mental health growing up, especially within the South Asian community. It's just something that wasn't necessarily talked about, which I do think it is now, and it's so incredible to see that. But anybody typically how you really ask yourself is you notice changes in yourself. I personally work with, of course, an amazing organization, and we educate on mental health. But they say that.
Can you share it? Can you share I'd love people to know.
Absolutely. So I work with it's a Canadian charity. So it's a Stigma Free Mental Health Society. And what they say is when you're feeling a certain way for 2 weeks or more, that's the actual way to understand that maybe you need to address your mental health, or you might be dealing with something. But for me personally, I noticed that I was starting to feel those feelings of insecurity, anxiety. I had social anxiety. I had gone through phases where I felt that I wasn't good enough, whether that comes from external media pressures, societal pressures of how I look. For example, I'll be very honest, fluctuating in my body weight, that's something that I have been going through my whole life. And to hear whether it be negative comments about it or being discouraged about the way I look, those are things that I've had to deal with throughout my life. And there was times that it did get to me, and I let it get to me to the point that it was developing a sense of anxiety. I felt like shutting myself off. I felt that I had to start working on myself and change the way I look, and had to focus on the things that truly don't matter. But it got to me. And
but it did matter, right? That's the key, right, Tanpreet? And that's the thing that I feel that people are not quite understanding is, what we look like does matter, because it's what it makes us feel like. And if that connection is there for you, then you need to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And, they always say you look good, you feel good. But when I think of that, I think look good in your definition of what beautiful is. And to me, I think that's so important, not what society is telling you to look like, and establishing the fact that we all are beautiful in the way we come. We have such beautiful, unique bodies and minds, and just there's so much that is beautiful. It doesn't necessarily mean your physical appearance and how you look. And, unfortunately, that's just the way the world has been. And, as much as we try to eliminate that, it's still out there. But it did get to me, especially being in a world that's so image focused, and that just comes with everything that I'm a
Mhm.
part of. But I have been grateful for the opportunities I've had and where, I've truly felt accepted. For example, Miss Canada being a personality pageant. I
Mhm.
didn't participate for any other reason but that there was no swimsuit portion. I felt that I was
Wow.
being, and I felt that I was being truly judged for who I am and my values and looked at in a way that I should be looked at, not how I look. So those were the things that were really empowering me while I felt that I was getting knocked down in my life from all those other factors and discouraging me as a woman. So
Mhm.
that's where I'm really grateful for opportunities and platforms like Miss Canada.
So are you like, do you feel comfortable sharing any of those other things that were going on that you feel will benefit our audience from knowing? Um, just anything that you're comfortable sharing, because it's interesting how life is, right? Like, you know that you're very clear as a human along your journey that this is what I need to do and these are the reasons I need to do it. And there can be all kinds of other things going on in other aspects of your life that make it very difficult to stay focused on this. And that's the reason I'm asking you this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, is there anything you feel comfortable sharing in that regard?
Absolutely. During my mental health battles, it was a few things that had kind of started happening in my life. A big part of it was my father dealing with cancer and almost losing his life. So that
Mm-hmm.
was one thing that had happened, and not everything that happens in everyone's life is necessarily, shared on social media. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I always say, always be kind to everybody. You don't know what they're going through, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that was a big part of my life. I also just felt that I was mentally exhausted. I was going year after year competing for a pageant, and I was just really working so hard. And I did let that piece kind of get to me, and I felt a
Mm-hmm.
little bit discouraged. I had been dealing with my own personal battles with learning to love myself. My body image struggles had been there throughout my life. And I will be honest, still is here today. And
Mm-hmm.
I've really tried to work on it so hard and find methods and ways to really overcome that. But that doesn't necessarily mean once you start working on it, it's good to go and you're perfectly fine. It's an ongoing battle that most people deal with. And during that time, I think that's when I felt at my lowest on how I felt about myself. I decided to let go of crash dieting or exercising so much to the point where I felt like I was exhausting myself and just doing what felt good for my body at that time and not doing the things that I felt that I need to do, whether it be, sticking on a very strict diet and being a certain size, body shape, and whatnot. And as much as I love doing things and staying active and being healthy, I think I was doing it for other reasons. And that's where it really affected my mental health and wasn't doing it for the right reasons. So just being able to overcome that. And during those 2 years, I had started to slow down a bit, and it took me a lot of time to understand how can I find a good balance. So I was battling a little bit of everything at that point, and it
Mm-hmm.
really just got to my mental health, and I just felt that I needed to take a step back. So it's different for everybody, but there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that can impact your mental health, and it just varies for each person.
In your case, when did you know that you were challenged with, your specific version of what that is, and what did you do? And
Yeah,
you talk about
absolutely.
stepping back, but like, are there any exercises? Is there certain something? I always love to share resources or anything that can help people that may be going through similar things, or even help them identify that they're actually even going through anything. Because, we go through life and we think that, how I live, how I feel is normal until we realize that, everyone's normal is different. And oftentimes, all of us do, go through challenges that can have all kinds of other effects that if we knew that we were going through these things, that, maybe we could have found ways to combat them or deal with them or overcome them or learn to live with them better.
Absolutely. And I would say maybe back in the day, I wouldn't even know where to go at first. But a great thing about me, which was a big part of my life, whereas when I joined the Stigma Free Mental Health Society, is to one, learn about more about mental health and stigma and finding resources, but there's so many resources out there that you can get if you are feeling like that you are battling with your mental health. The biggest thing is, of course, talking to someone. I personally have always been talking to a counselor. How can I overcome these feelings? And sometimes we're not necessarily always comfortable doing that, but it doesn't have to be a counselor. But as long as it's somebody that you trust to share
Yeah.
your feelings with and talk about it, I think speaking up is the first thing. And that's your choice who you do that with.
Yeah.
But that's something that really helped me is talking about how I felt and learning how to overcome that. Of course, there's a lot of methods personally for me, when I was dealing with, body image and anxiety and whatnot, there was a few things that I had to eliminate, and that was people and things that were not supporting me in my journey. And that's another thing that I thought was so helpful for me is who am I around? Who am I surrounding myself with? Are these people empowering me, making me feel supported, or are these individuals making me feel more discouraged and not supporting me in my journey or my struggles? So that was a big thing. Social media plays such a huge role in our life. What are the things that we're spending our days scrolling through and looking at? Are we looking at things on our social media that are making us feel more worse about ourselves? Or are we looking at things and connecting with people that are more in a positive light or helping us feel more empowered and encouraged? So those are things that I really had to ask myself and be honest with myself about and do that. So that's been, I've truly saying, as much as I might have a social media presence, I am less active on my social media than I probably used to be, but there's a reason behind it. And that was because it supports my mental health. And I need to find a good balance with how much I'm really putting myself out there. What am I putting my attention towards? Those were the little things that were really triggering me. And now I just have to find a balance. And of course, positive affirmations, right? I don't think we ever really take time in our day to just say something we're proud about. And I recently just did that with my family on Thanksgiving dinner. And I asked everybody around the table what was something that they did for themselves this year that they're so proud of. And it was just such a nice thing to do. And everyone just looked at so confused that we've never really done that before. And I always say it's so good to have these positive affirmations, no matter what it is, because it really helps you overcome and, those negative thoughts that you might have or going through in that moment and self-sabotaging yourself. So positive affirmations, always learn to love yourself and just be grateful for something and give yourself that love at least once a day, I would say.
I feel that you've answered the next question I wanted to ask you, but I'm going to have you encapsulate it regardless. Can you tell me how you specifically represent self-love, individuality, and advocacy at this point in your life, which are the cornerstones of the Miss Canada organization? Can you share that with everyone?
Thank you. Yes. So, power of conversation and power of really truly putting it out there, sharing my stories. So, I think the biggest thing for me as Miss Canada and having a title as Miss Canada is such a big platform. And one thing that I find so empowering is to have been continuing my time with the Stigma Free Mental Health Society. I work with students all over Canada, sharing my struggles and my not so perfections. As of right now, my sash is falling off and it's normal. So
I didn't even notice, sister, because I'm enthralled in your answers.
So I think the power of sharing your story is very important. And I've been grateful to be working with students all over Canada, talking about my journey, inspiring them to see what the real side of my life is, and hopefully them being able to be empowered by my story, my journey, and also understanding that sometimes not what you see out there is what it is. It's always, whether it just be filters or whether it just be the perfect image of somebody's life or what they're going through or how they look like. It's not true. So I think that's a great way in order for us to be able to, as people, just be so authentic, and sharing your stories is so important. So that's been a big part. And of course, that aspect of just being able to support so many charitable causes and participating in events and supporting my community and all these community initiatives that are happening outside of BC as well, which has been great. And I think that's been the most empowering thing for me during this journey. And it's still going on. I still have my year, and I'm really looking forward to doing more.
Oh my gosh, and I know that you will, and I have to ask you this question because, by default of our community that's watching, listening, and reading this, has being South Asian and a woman factored into your fight for finding yourself, like in general terms? And if so, how? And if not, can you share some words of wisdom for those people who are going through that?
So I am really excited to also say that I am the first Punjabi Sikh woman to win Miss Canada. Miss Canada has been
Woohoo!
around since 1946, and
Mhm.
it's one of the longest running pageants in Canada. So to be able to represent my community, I absolutely am honored. I'm grateful. And of course, just to empower the South Asian women in our community to just let you all know whatever it is in your life, whatever you want to pursue, doesn't necessarily have to be pageantry, but don't be afraid to do what you love. And I'm so glad that I went through this journey. And I've been grateful for a supportive family and support system. And that's not always the case. But my only advice is to be open and honest about what you're doing. I really involved my family, my parents especially, in my journey, tried to explain to them what a pageant was and what I am doing. And in fact, I've had them be so involved. So I think that that is the biggest piece is that communication aspect. I think when you communicate and you're honest with yourself and the people around you, you naturally will get that support. But don't be afraid. I think that's the biggest thing. Life is about having your journey, and setbacks only make you stronger. It helps us grow, it helps us become better and stronger. So let that be a source of motivation in your life. And there's so many incredible people, especially in our community, South Asian women
Mhm.
doing such incredible things. Lots of people have inspired me, and I hope that my journey inspires other women, but you're not alone.
Absolutely. And in your journey definitely will inspire other women. And, I think that the biggest takeaway for me in this conversation with you, sweetheart, has been that beauty is so much more of a diverse definition than it used to be generations past. I'd love for you to share your definition of what you believe beauty to be based on your experiences. Kind of putting you on the spot there.
No, I love that question. To me, I think that beauty is about loving yourself first, and that love radiates into the world. And that's when you can spread that love and kindness to everyone else around you. And I think that that's where true beauty lies is learning to love yourself and then giving that love to other people. It's not about how we look. Beauty comes in all different forms. And I just think it's really important to understand that true beauty comes from within. And that's where I really, really think that it's so important that every woman or even man should really take that time to reflect and just love yourself because
Mhm.
that's where you'll truly shine. And I didn't feel that genuine feeling of, feeling beautiful until I learned to love myself.
That's the big takeaway right there. Or is it? Like what is your biggest takeaway to date?
I think the biggest takeaway is just never give up. We're capable of everything as human, and we just truly need to, yes, love yourself, but never give up. There's nothing in this world, there's no obstacle in this world that is greater than you, and you will be able to achieve anything in your life. You just have to put your mind to it. Perseverance is key. So I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of takeaways, but I think the root of everything in our lives is if you genuinely have that love and self-acceptance for yourself, and that will flourish into everything for you.
And I feel from your journey, at least, I mean, 4 times going for that title, girlfriend. Oh my gosh. You
I
know,
never gave up.
no, you never gave
No.
up. And I feel listening to you here that you never gave up on yourself. That's the big, that's the big part here, because especially something like that, and I mean, it's out there in the public domain. Every time you don't make it, this is not a case of something that you can forget about because the whole world is watching the fact that you didn't make it. And then you came again and then you didn't make it. And then you did it a third time and you didn't make it.
Exactly. Third
Right? It's like,
time.
how do you, like, you have to have so much conviction in yourself from an internal kind of visceral deep place in
The
order to
amount
just keep doing that.
Agreed. And the amount of people that message me to say, "Are you sure you want to do it again?" And I said, "Absolutely. Watch me. I'm going to go do it and I'll keep doing it." And the organization might even tell me not to come back anymore. God knows. But I think that was one thing that they really appreciated and definitely communicated to me this year was they admired my dedication and
Mhm.
just my values and how I was continuing to go back to Miss Canada and set a goal for myself. So they really admired that. And I just really hope that people understand and see me and use me as an example that it took me 4 times and it might take me 10 times for my next journey. God knows. But whatever it is, just keep going because you can get there. And I kept telling myself that, and I never let anything or anyone bring me down in the process of it.
That's the big one right there. Tanpreet, I've had such an amazing time chatting with you. I feel like there's so much more that, we could talk about. We've just basically just touched just the surface of truly how deep the story can go. So obviously, you know that you're going to come back after you've gone through your year, because I know you'll have lots of things to reflect on, and there'll be like the next chapter of your life that will begin, and who knows what opportunities are going to come about from, this position that you're in that, is incredible. And also, how you're going to feel about the next phase of your life. So before we close off, is there anything that you'd like everyone out there to know that perhaps we haven't talked about? I want you to have the opportunity to close out the way that you'd like.
I just want to close out and say that spread kindness. I think that's one thing that is very important. We don't know what anybody is battling, and it's very important to be kind to one another. Everybody around you is going through their own journeys in life. And as a community, a society, I think one thing that we really need to work on is spreading that kindness and that encouragement and that positivity and eliminating all that hate that can be out there. And it's something that's been close to me and something I've personally lived through and experienced in my life. And the struggles that I've personally battled and see others going through, it just really makes me so grateful in a way to one, be around the supportive community, but I think that needs to grow. So I just want everyone to know, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And if there's anything that you can do to support somebody else in their journey and your own and for yourself, just do it because it can really go a long way.
As it has. And this is, really your formative years. You have so much journey to experience, and you've learned a lot of lessons that a lot of people don't, learn throughout their lives. So I'm excited to see where your journey will go, sweetheart. And I know a big part of your journey is the give back, is the service component, which is why you do the work that you do. Where shall we send people to hang out with you on social media and to kind of support your journey and to see where things go for you?
So you can find me, of course, on social media. Miss Canada has your as well. There are social media platforms where you can follow my journey along with my personal social media. That's where everything's going. I'm currently in the process of building my website as well, which will be launching soon. Lots of information coming up on there. But follow me on my social media channels. That's where I'll be sharing all the exciting things that I have been doing and continue to keep doing this year as well as next year. There's lots more to come.
What's your handle, sweetheart?
Tanpreet Parmar.
Okay, your name.
Yes.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's just Miss Canada 2024.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your incredible journey, sweetheart. I'm so very proud of how you have handled, all aspects of your life and kind of really come out the winner on your terms. I truly do wish you much success as you prepare to take on the world. I really,
Thank you,
really do.
Raj. That's very kind. I really appreciate your time and listening to me, sharing my story and my journey. It means a lot. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm looking forward to having another conversation soon.
I can't wait, sweetheart. Thank you so much. And guys, I will see you next time on the Anoki Uncensored podcast. Stay connected with us everywhere at Anoki Lifestyle. And don't forget to sign up for our free weekly newsletter at anokilife.com, which is also where the Anoki magazine blog resides. I want to make sure that you guys stay connected in our world, whichever way you feel comfortable, because you know that for the last over 2 decades, we've been telling your stories. We have been spotlighting everything regionally, nationally, and internationally that our incredible, dynamic community participates in and shares with the world. Much love to all of you, my darlings, and I will see you next time.